Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So you want to know something crazy? The vast majority of the people who watch this channel are 45 to 50 years old or 54 years old. And so if you ever watch these like TikToks about people talking about how like they're in debt and they're struggling, it's because they're watching the wrong content, in my opinion. But let's go ahead and see what's going on. I know Coachella happened recently, and I think she's going to talk about it. And this is from Groovy Rocker Chick. I had no idea people even listen to rock music anymore. I mean, there was a very famous radio station back in the day in Southern California called K Rock that was really famous in the 90s. But the problem was is they never went past through in the 90s. It's like they just kept playing music from the 90s. So I had no idea people listen to rock music anymore. But let's see what she has to say.
More people are in credit card debt than you can even fathom. And I'm talking large amounts of debt. Next time you feel really bad about not being able to attend a festival or have some sort of experience or have a luxury item because you don't have the money, just remember that most of these people that you know are borrowing money to get it, okay? Once upon a time in college, I lived in this huge shared living situation, which was a total fucking nightmare, okay? There were like a million people in the house, and I'm not even exaggerating. And there was this one girl I lived with that would literally travel out of the country to go to concerts multiple times a month, and she would like always get barricade, and she always had these huge shopping hauls and generally like really expensive beauty products and clothes, and like it was actually insane. And I remember moving in and thinking like, how is she affording this shit, like specifically all the international flights and concerts. And sometimes there wasn't even a concert, she would just be like, I'm gonna go to Europe for a few days. And I was like, okay. But then other people in the house informed me that like she was actually in $30,000 of credit card debt and she just didn't give a fuck. And one time I talked to her about it and she was like, my parents have declared bankruptcy 5 times. Like money isn't real. I was like,
Can't
okay,
argue with
bro.
that.
I forgot to add that one time people from the local court or one of the local courts pulled up in the parking lot of our house and served her these papers because Discover, like the credit card company Discover, was going after her for all this money she owed that she hadn't paid back like months ago. And I remember talking to her about this money because she would bring it up frequently, like in the house when I was like cooking in the kitchen or whatever, being like, yeah, it was like $1,200 or it was $2,000. Like the number would vary. Like who fucking knows what the real number was? Like whatever she said, it was probably triple that. So like who really knows? But she's like, but they're a big company, like they'll just eat the cost. I'm like, no, they're gonna get you. And they did in fact get her, and they started like garnishing her wages and shit. Like it was actually crazy. Way more.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and simulate debt payoff now. Probably as a younger person, um, making $5,000 a month. And I know that for a lot of people, $5,000 a month is a lot. But if you think about inflation, things have been getting crazy lately. And I think a lot of people are feeling it, right? A lot of people are feeling it. So this is why I say, like, in order for you to get by, you really should, and I know this is kind of discouraged in modern society, combine forces with your family, right? Like, this is really discouraged in modern society. But think about it, like, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, all the people who rule society have like, they combine forces with their family members, but you as an individual are told not to like do that, be an individual, whatever. Okay. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and pay off debt using something, a really long name, and a viewer of the channel actually complained, like, can we actually have a serious name? Because I was just like joking around. It's like, oh yeah, it's the artist formerly known as Velocity Banking, aka the Debt Cannonball Method. And someone actually said, give me a serious name. And I think that's like the cult members begging the cult leader, please be serious about the cult. Okay. So you know what? I'm actually gonna just relabel this and call it the velocity method. But realize that this used to be called this, right? And the reason why we stopped using this is because the state of Illinois actually went after another YouTuber for running a business for consulting about debt payoff, and used the term this term, and they're like, you can't do that. You're not a bank, and you need our permission. So they fined him $20,000. So let's just call it this, the velocity method. Okay. All right. Hey everybody, welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So what we're gonna do is just pay off debt. And hopefully, there might be one young person watching this, and they probably won't because just looking from my channel demographics, I think we have a clientele, or not a clientele, what do you call it, a demographic with more experience who wants to understand this stuff, and then once they understand it, they're like, bang, this is a game changer, right? So let's go ahead and get started. What's the difference between average American, I guess I'll use the word banking, versus the velocity method? Is that the way that the average American does banking is that they get their income into their checking account, and then they're expected to pay all their bills, right? And then after they pay all their bills, they leave the rest in their checking and savings. And you might be thinking, what's the big deal? Especially if you're in, isn't that how you're supposed to do it? And so what we're going to do is, even with the same income and the same expenses, okay, I'm going to go ahead and copy this. We're actually going to do the exact opposite. First of all, we're not paying uh, directly our bills after we get our paycheck, right? What we're going to do is put our all of our paycheck into something called a line of credit. And the other thing that will make most people feel uncomfortable is that this checking and savings, we're pretty much going to keep it to zero as much as possible. Right. And what we're going to do is focus on this number called cash flow. Now, I know that in average American banking, cash flow and checking and savings are considered to be the same thing. Whatever's left over is your cash flow. And for us, that's not true uh, in the velocity method, because we're focusing all our money pay off debt, and then using the leftover money to decrease the debt, right? And I know that, it's like, isn't that what we're doing right now? Not necessarily. Okay. And what we're going to do is, we need, first of all, we need to create a budget, because our budget is our debt attack plan. And then second, we need to make sure in our budget we list every single debt that we have as its own line item. And then what we do is we list the debt, we list the payment, right? And then on the last item, we just combine all of our expenses that are not tied to debt. Okay, food, gas, insurance, all that other good stuff. And so you take a look here. One of the things we also should do is use a formula called the cash flow index. So basically, you have your debt payment divided by, or I'm sorry, your debt amount, your debt balance divided by the monthly payment, and then you just do that for all your debts, and what you have is essentially a ranking system. Okay, so why do we want to pay off these lower numbers first, not the higher numbers? Well, it's about bang for your buck in terms of cash flow. So, for example, I literally have to give someone $230,000 to get about $1,000 back in my cash flow, whereas I can give maybe like three credit cards, and it would almost be very similar, right? Much less amount for much bigger cash flow, right? Or relatively bigger cash flow. Okay, like if I pay these four off, right, I will get more cash flow than just paying $230,000 in my mortgage. So you have to think about bang for your buck. How much are you paying in order to get the cash flow back in your life? Okay. All right. So now this is what we're going to do. So now we have the cash flow indexes calculated. So we're going to do is pay these off first, the lower the ranking ones, and the lower the number, the more bang you get for your buck, right? And so we're going to assume we have access to maybe like a, I don't know, $30,000 um, home equity line of credit. And so what's a line of credit? It's basically a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again. And if you have $191 left over in the month, I'm going to tell you something. Banks don't lend money to people who need it. So if you try to get a line of credit, at this moment, at this time, you're not going to get it. You are not going to get it, right? Because the bank, when they see someone who needs money, they just run away. There's a reason why they invest so heavily in like IT systems, right? IT systems in which they're trying to figure out everything about you before they talk to an underwriter, because this is what I've heard. Underwriters are expensive, right? So they try to block maybe 90% of the people and only give credit or issue credit to the 10% of people that they consider to be worthy. I'm making the 90-10 up, but you know what I mean. So why do we assume that we can get a free and clear line of credit? And that it's because I'm lazy and I just want to make this demonstration easy. But if you want to see a real life case scenario, join the channel membership 99 cents, where someone had about $5,000 of income, 22 debts, and $4 left over. Right? We did that simulation in the live stream. It was a real life case study. I think we paid it off about 10 years, right? It takes a lot more effort and work on my part, but I'm just going to be a little bit lazy here. And the main point of this is, if you had a free and clear line of credit, you would even like if you're able to know the strategy from before, you wouldn't even be in this situation, right? But let's go ahead and get started. So what we're going to do is tally up the credit card debt. So 5, let me do this, 5, 8, 15. And I'm going to go ahead and sum it up. So that's 28,000. So that's $28,000 of credit card debt. And so now we're about $191 of cash flow. But think about this as like a balance transfer. Okay, balance transfer. So guess what happens here? Zero, 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 right? And oh my goodness, like how do we get an extra $1,000, almost $1,000 here without making more money? See how like the income is the same? All we did is shift some expenses, and because this is zero, right? We're not putting any money or checking savings. Somehow this goes to $191 and up to $1,114.16 without making more money and changing our lifestyle. Now, it does require you to be strategic because it requires you to go to a bank when you don't need money, so you never get here. Okay? So now the final step is that you're going to put your entire $5,000 paycheck as an overpayment to the line of credit, right? And so if you want to know how the balance is probably going to be calculated, it's the previous month's balance, previous month's interest minus the cash flow, 1114.16. And usually the monthly payment, most of the time, not always, is going to just be interest only. So what does that mean? Is that the minimum payments is essentially $182.95 in this example. So if you dump the entire $5,000 into this month, we're going to satisfy the payment because it's only $182, right? And then we take out the expenses and we rinse and repeat over and over again. So technically, this interest right here is actually part of your personal operating expenses because it is an expense, right? But why do we calculate separately? Because it's going to be very varied month to month, right? So let's go ahead and do that. And then so I'm going to, okay, copy and paste. And then we see that in 20 months, this was all paid off, right? 20 months, this was all paid off. And then so 20 months, and that'll be 28K. And then copy and paste this. So you see that at a little bit less than 3 years, this was just all paid off, right? So 3 credit cards. We only had $190 of debt. We're good. And now we have three more loans, which is the auto loan, student loan, and the mortgage. So let me just do this right here. So what I'm going to do is put the current month, and then here you see what the current balance is, right? So we have all these fancy formulas to kind of tell us what the current balance is, and this, to be honest, is kind of hard to set up in the beginning, but once you've got it set up, it's really easy to figure out. So now we just apply the cash flow index formula again. So a lot of times people are thinking, well, let's go with the highest interest rate, right? Highest interest rate. Um, well, think about this. Like if I pay this 30 grand off, I only get $388 back in my cash flow, right? Whereas 17 grand, I pay this 17 grand, it's 449. So at this point, I probably will just pay off the 17 grand so to get more cash flow than this 30 grand, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So 17 grand, I'm going to move it into the line of credit, okay? And then this is going to be plus 17079.18. All right, we got that. And then, so now this is zero. This is the auto loan. So this is our $1,500 of cash flow, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to update. Wait a minute. Did I screw up? Hold on. I think I did. Hold on. Let me see. Yeah, I think I did screw up. My bad. Oh man, I really screwed up. All right, so let's just do this. Okay, so month 28. So I think I did it right. Hold on, let me just quickly see. Oh, it's 28 months. So it's like 1 month per 1K. Okay, my bad. But the idea is still the same. So let me just do month 28. So now we're gonna move 13 grand into the here into the line of credit, right? So plus 13798.43. Okay. And then what we do is we increase the cash flow. Hold on. Yeah, increase the cash flow by $449. So now our cash flow went from 1100 to 1500. So let's go ahead and update that. Yeah. Okay. So if you're a little bit confused by this, I probably screwed up somewhere. But don't worry, the idea is relatively the same. So every time we move a loan into the line or debt into the line of credit, we increase the cash flow by the payment amount. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste. And then we see that in month 37, okay, month 37, this has been paid off, right? 37 months. And then so now, just about 9 more months, our car is paid off. So it'll be 28 plus 25. So that will be 53K. And then, right, so now we're just going to go to 37 months. So this is 0, this is 37, 37. And then we see that this is 26 grand, okay? 26 grand has been paid off or is left in the student loan. Now, here's the thing about these loans with high cash flow indexes, and anything above 50 is relatively high, right? We don't want to move the whole thing into a line of credit because you really get itty bitty amount of cash flow for moving into a line of credit, and especially if there's a big interest rate difference, you'll end up paying more. Okay, so one of the things that we can do is we can just make overpayments of 1,500 to the student loan. And I don't know about you, but whenever I've made an overpayment to the student loan directly, it always just feels like a sacrifice, right? Doesn't it? I always hear that a lot in TikTok. So what we're going to do is just make it easy for us to overpay the loan and make sure that it gets paid off relatively quickly without having to feel like it's a sacrifice, right? A lot of this is all psychological, what I'm talking about. But what are we going to do? We're going to do something called chunking. So chunking is basically just moving a piece of the loan into the line of credit, right? So let's say we move, I don't know, let's say $5,000 of the loan into the line of credit, right? So what does this look like right here? Well, basically, let me just kind of show you here. Let's say $5,000. Okay, so we're going to add 5,000, oopsie, plus 5,000 into line of credit, and then you see it gets paid off in about 3 months. So month one, two, three, and then you rinse and repeat over and over again. So you see that the 5,000 gets paid off relatively quickly, right? And so now we have this calculator that can kind of help us determine easily that even if we do chunking, with an interest rate difference, right, we can pay it off quickly. And one of the reasons that I say, that might be a good reason just to do it this way rather than overpaying is that if you overpay and then now you start, let's say, having to use credit cards as backups, and I'm not saying don't use credit cards, right? There's a way to do this where make it, where we can make it easy too, is that you're going to end up segregating your income. And this is how you ended up here in the first place. So, what is income segregation? So, here you have $5,000 of income, it gets split all over the place, and you got itty bitty amount of money left over. So, what we're trying to do is to make our money as effective as possible and easy to pay off debt is just to put our money into one place, which is a line of credit. Okay. Now you might be thinking that makes no sense. And I remember when I first learned it, I was like, that makes no sense. But then once you do it in practice, you're like, dang, this is like really easy to pay off debt. So let me just kind of do this 35,000. And so 35,000, 6% at 10 years. And then the payment amount is 388.57. So 388.57. And so let's do a $5,000 chunk, $5,000 of income, and then our living expenses is everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. So it's actually these two, right? Oopsie, what the heck did I do here? It's actually these two, is the mortgage, because we're trying to pay off the student loan, right? So the mortgage and your personal expenses is what we're doing here. And then so 3048.06 is 3048.06. All right, is our expenses, and now what's the current balance? The current balance is, we take a look here. So it's 26,343.34. So 26,343.34. And then we see that it takes us 1.1 years to pay off that student loan. Okay, so let me just kind of show you right here. And this is going to be 0. And then now it's 37 plus 1.1 times 12. So that's 50, we'll say 51 months. and then that'll be 88K, I believe. Okay, and then we just do the same thing with the mortgage, right? So 51 months, and then this is going to be 0, and then this is going to be 230, right? So now let me just do a 30-year mortgage, 30, 230,000. What's the original? What's the current balance? 211,610.94, 211,610.94. Interest rate is, I believe, 4%, right? So 4% right here. And then the payment amount is 1098.06. So 1098.06. And then now we just make this, I believe, into the expenses, this expenses. So we take out this one because it's everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. So 1950. So it's 6.7 years we paid off the mortgage. So we're still under the 7-year mark. I mean, it's not as good as I want it to be, but I'd rather have it paid off like under 4. But 7 years is pretty good because I don't know if you ever heard like pay off your mortgage in 7 to 10 years. Well, we still did it under let's say suboptimal conditions, right? So I'm just gonna do 0 right here, and then 51 plus divide by 12 plus 6.7, so 10.95 years, and then we're debt free, right? And remember, we started this when we were $191 left over, right? So we were in the struggle bus, and then now we are completely debt free, and we're going to have a net worth of at least 230,000 because every time we pay off the mortgage, we build up equity, right? And that house is an asset that you can sell that will be considered an asset in your books, right? According to your accountant, probably. I don't know your accountant, but I'm not an accountant either. But it's going to be, it should be an asset in your books. Okay, so now, well, that's it for today, folks. This is Korean Lanta Mentorship here with another video. And yeah, well, that's it. Happy Saturday. Who knows? Maybe I may make 10 more videos today just because I'm feeling it. I think I'm feeling it a little bit today, or maybe not. All right, have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video.